You don't have to be a Harvard student to study like one. The truth is, the world's top universities are not just filled with geniuses, they're filled with people who have mastered the art of learning. What sets them apart isn't just intelligence, but the strategies they use every single day to study smarter, not harder. If you're tired of reading for hours and remembering nothing, or if you feel stuck and unproductive, it's time to unlock the techniques that high achievers rely on to absorb knowledge faster, retain more information, and ace their exams. Today, we'll reveal 4 powerful study methods that Harvard students use and how you can use them to transform your own learning journey. Let's start with the first technique, active recall. Imagine you're reading a chapter in your textbook. Most people read passively. They highlight, they underline, maybe even reread the same paragraph over and over. But guess what? Studies show that passive reading does little to help you remember what you've read. Instead, top students use active recall. After reading a section, they close the book and try to recall the main points from memory. They test themselves without looking at the notes. This simple habit forces your brain to work, strengthening those neural connections and making the information stick. It's like lifting weights for your mind. Active recall isn't just about memorizing facts. It's about training your brain to retrieve information when you need it most, during exams. The next time you finish a page, stop and ask yourself, what did I just learn? Can I explain it in my own words? Write down everything you remember, then check your notes to see what you missed. Over time, you'll find that you remember more, with less effort. It's not about how long you study, it's about how effectively you engage your brain. The second technique is spaced repetition. Have you ever crammed for a test the night before, only to forget everything a few days later? That's because our brains are wired to forget information if we don't revisit it. Spaced repetition is the antidote. Harvard students don't just review their notes once, they spread out their study sessions over days, weeks, even months. They use tools like flashcards or apps that remind them to review information at just the right time, before they're about to forget it. Here's how it works. After learning something new, review it the next day, then a few days later, then a week after that. Each time you revisit the material, the intervals get longer and your memory gets stronger. This technique turns short-term knowledge into long-term mastery. It's not about how much you study in one sitting. It's about coming back to the material again and again until it becomes a part of you. The third technique is interleaving. Most students study one subject for hours at a time. They read through all their math notes, then move on to science, then history. But research shows that mixing up topics, studying math for a while, then switching to science, then back to math, actually helps you learn more deeply. This is called interleaving. Why does it work? Because when you switch between different types of problems or subjects, your brain has to work harder to retrieve the right strategies. It feels more challenging, but that struggle is what leads to real learning. Harvard students use interleaving to keep their minds sharp and make connections between different subjects. Instead of doing all your biology homework at once, try mixing in some chemistry or physics. You'll be surprised at how much more you remember and how much easier it is to solve challenging problems on test day. The fourth and final technique is elaboration. It's not enough to just memorize facts. You need to understand them deeply. Elaboration means taking what you've learned and connecting it to what you already know. Harvard students ask themselves questions like, how does this idea relate to something I learned before? Can I teach this concept to someone else? Can I come up with my own examples? This technique turns abstract information into something meaningful and memorable. For example, if you're learning about the process of photosynthesis, don't just memorize the steps. Ask yourself, why does this process matter? How does it connect to what I learned about plant biology in middle school? Can I explain it to a friend using a real-life analogy? The more connections you make, the deeper your understanding, and the easier it is to recall the information under pressure. Let's recap. Active recall, spaced repetition, interleaving, and elaboration. These aren't just random tips. They're evidence-based strategies that the world's best students use to achieve extraordinary results. You don't need to spend endless hours in the library. You don't need a photographic memory. What you need is a smarter approach. But there's one more thing that separates top students from the rest: mindset. The belief that you can improve, that your abilities are not fixed, is the foundation of every successful learner. When you hit a wall, don't give up. Remind yourself, struggle means growth. Every moment of confusion is an opportunity to get better. When you face a difficult concept, use active recall to test yourself. Use spaced repetition to review it again and again. Use interleaving to connect it with other ideas. Use elaboration to make it your own. Remember, Harvard students aren't superhuman. They just have a system you can use starting today. The next time you sit down to study, don't just read and hope for the best. Challenge yourself. Mix up your subjects. Teach what you've learned. Review, recall, and repeat. Build habits that will last a lifetime. You have the power to learn anything you set your mind to. You have the potential to achieve extraordinary things. The journey won't always be easy, but every step you take brings you closer to your goals. So, open your books with purpose. Study with intention. Trust the process. And remember, success isn't about being the smartest in the room. It's about being the most determined, the most consistent, and the most willing to grow. Start today. Your future self will thank you.